Sportin Wales podcast.
Supported by DragonBet.
Your go-to for Welsh sports news and views.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Sportin Wales, sponsored by DragonBet. And I am pleased to have today, first time, Josh Navidi. Mate, how are you?
Yeah, first time. Nice. Yeah, I'm good, mate. Ticking by. Thanks for having me.
Too busy. I've invited you plenty of times.
Too busy with the cars and so yeah.
And someone else joining us, Andrew McKenna from TalkSport, main correspondent. Mate, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Not as busy as you in the last couple of days, but, ticking along quite nicely.
Well, I'm sure you've been busy enough, but yeah. Yesterday was absolutely mental day, wasn't it?
Yeah, my phone hasn't been stopped going, really.
Still going, yeah.
It was a bit of a weird one, because I seen you doing it down the Vale, and I went for a sauna with one of the boys, went to the CAF, and then you just seen more and more media people down there, BBC people, and it's crazy, like, actually being out of it and seeing it, the way that it unfolded, like the media and everything around it, was a bit different as a player, what went on yesterday. Yeah,
so obviously, I don't know, you must be in a bit of a hole if you haven't heard, but Warren Gatland has resigned from the Wales senior men's rugby team, and Matt Sherratt is in charge for interim basis. Obviously, more news to follow, I think, obviously, after the press conference. I'm sure your phone was going pretty mad as well. Andrew obviously probably asked the question, what did you think about it, obviously, with the decision that the union have made to obviously sack Warren Gatland?
I was less surprised than I think a lot of other people. I was of the opinion that if Warren was going to go after the Six Nations anyway, why not go now? Why waste those 3 games, if you like? We've seen the world ranking where it is, and I think a lot of people in the wider world have woken up to the fact of how important that world ranking is with the draw for the next World Cup coming up in only a few months. Wales cannot afford to let that slide anymore. They had to do something. The performance against Italy was unacceptable. It was not of the level that is expected, or indeed what the players were capable. Lots have been spoken about not having the players, but the players that were out there were better than that performance. Something had to happen, and therefore, for me, you've got this 2-week break, which gives whoever it was going to come in, we now know it's Matt for the time being, it gives them a bit of time to work on something. Just change the atmosphere about the place. Just change something. Give it a different feel and try and get something out of these next 3 games. So I actually wasn't that surprised. I thought if he was going at the end, why not go now?
Do you think it was a bit of maybe a knee-jerk reaction in terms of the obviously rankings? Now we're below Georgia. I don't think we're 12th, aren't we? And we know how much that impacts the seeding wise for the groups for the World Cup, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's got to be a factor in it, because let's make no bones about this. Rugby union is in a state where the money comes from the top down. That means Wales desperately need the men's senior team to be performing. That is where the WRU makes its money, through ticket sales, through sponsorships, through commercial, through, if you get to the quarterfinals of the Rugby World Cup, you get a bit more money. If you make the semi-finals, you get a bit more money. They need the men's senior team to be performing. They can't allow this to happen. So yeah, look, while it shouldn't necessarily be financial that the decision has been made, it has to play a part in it.
Yeah. Josh, what were your thoughts yesterday? Obviously, we've had some pretty good times under Warren, haven't we, over the years?
Yeah.
And obviously his second stint coming in a pretty different environment, I guess, wasn't it? Really different sort of calibre of players. He came in to do a job in the World Cup, which I thought he did, pretty well, really, where we were before. Was that probably a time for him to move on? Or do you think the union just sort of jumped on the back of that?
Like, you look back, what he's done, championships we've been involved in, doing the first stint he had, it was outstanding, what he'd done for Welsh rugby, that we demand that performance, that level. Like, we were ranked number 1 going 2019 World Cup, and Gat's coming back in. He was the right man to come back in, going previous, like the Six Nations before, leading into the World Cup. He was probably the right guy to come in and take over the Welsh team at that time. And obviously it hasn't gone to plan, and going on a 14-game losing streak is obviously higher ups, they've come to a mutual agreement. But it is sad to see him go, because I've had some great times with him. I know a lot of people, like, he's been here, he's got a gate named after him as well. Like, that's how respected he is in Wales. And doing the way it's gone is probably not what we would want to see, or like me and you would want to see it. But doing the change being made, and Bobby is looking forward to the future now. Like, where do we go next? And Jockey, Matt, coming in, he's a fantastic coach. We've both been under him as players, and I've won doing Europe with Cardiff. He's developed me as a player, and I think with the younger boys and the relationships he's been there before in the Welsh camp and done international rugby and being amongst it. And like, when I was at Cardiff before, I could see him going further.
Yeah.
So he is probably a guy to step up, and doing his who comes in next, or if he stays, what have you. I think that's going to be a longer conversation.
Well, why do you think we're in this position? Do you think Warren's been let down by the union in terms of probably not telling the full truth in terms of the structuring and the financial situations the clubs are under, or were the coaches letting them down? Because it looked like on the weekend the players weren't really playing for him, in my opinion, were they? They didn't seem like they had full heart into it.
Teams have gone better, and I think it's like how you catch up. Like, we are ranked below Georgia, but if we went to play Georgia today, would we beat them? And I'm confident to say, we would.
You reckon?
Yeah, like, hands down. Like, I looked at the team against France, and I speaking to Gareth Rees-Owen before, and I got really excited. But then we went probably with a game plan that we started well, like first 10 minutes, like passing, getting the ball out and running it. And it's like against France, like, I'm old school. I'm like, bang it down there, pie pressure on them, defend, get easy turnover into their half.
Tackle. That's you, jackal.
That's me. Like, that's like doing over years. It's worked. I know it's boring rugby probably, but like that thing. And then you've seen the change come in Italy. Like, we were kicking in there, 10 putting pressure. The weather wasn't great, but you want to see like the performance, and teams have gone better, and it's like probably. Where does it come from? Like, I was with Nigel Owens earlier on radio, and he was saying about grassroots rugby and all that. It's probably like, how far do you delve into the onion, like peeling back the layers and going that deep into it?
What do you think, Andrew? What have you seen from, obviously, across the border in terms of just just how spiral Wales have gone down? Like, people have spoken about it. Has anyone seen a bigger drop-off of an international team than Wales right now? It's mad, isn't it, really? We were number one in the world 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was it? Winning the title in 21, so we're now...
That's not that long ago.
It's almost like someone has cut the cords on the parachute. That's how quickly Wales have fallen down here. I don't know. It looks from the outside like... We see it in the URC, we see it in the Premiership in England. Teams are playing this much more open, expansive style. Warren has his style. And it's almost like he's said, no, this is the style we're going to play. It's almost like he's picking a squad that necessarily aren't the ones to play that style of rugby. That whole, I hate to use the phrase because he absolutely hated it, but Warren ball. You think back to that big, powerful centres carrying it and whatever. Well, they're not doing that week in, week out. And we're talking about, we spoke about it before, Ben playing at 10 when realistically he's a 12. It feels like we got square pegs in round holes. And it actually feels in some places we're trying to put pegs where there aren't holes. So I don't know. It feels like Warren was trying to instigate something that just didn't fit how it was. Now I understand Josh's point completely. International rugby is slightly different. In fact, just as a tangent for a moment, I remember a conversation with Eddie Jones when he was England head coach a few years back, and there'd been an incredible game over the weekend, and Eddie was doing press on sort of like the Tuesday, and we were just nattering before we actually started the press conference. This game had finished something like 48-44 or something, and Eddie's comment was, yeah, but that's not real rugby, mate. I thought, well, it was. I watched it. It definitely was. It happened. But the argument is that international rugby isn't played like that. Well, if you've got an inexperienced squad who are used to playing that style, I'd say play it. Do you know what? And you might come a cropper against Ireland, but it'll mean those players feel more natural. If you've only got them for a few training sessions here and there, to ask them to suddenly relearn the game, I think that feels really, really tough on them. So I'm going to be really interested to see what Matt does in that Ireland game, because he kind of alluded to it in the press conference about how he wants to see a more attacking, entertaining style of game. So I think the Dogs are going to get let off the leash. If not fully, then they might get one of those extendable leashes for the time being, just to give them a bit more space to have a run around.
Yeah, I do think Matt, I like the first thing he said about it, the mindset-wise. I think you could see they probably were going into the French game thinking that they couldn't win. That's what it seemed like, didn't it, in terms of the way they played. I think Matt will give them...
You never go into games like that.
But Italy, mate, Italy were comfortable for that whole game. The scoreline flattered them, Wales, really, didn't it? There was no ideas. The kicking game was all over the shot. Matt will probably... If you look at the way Cardiff play, they're pretty pragmatic now in the middle third. They don't play quite as much as they used to, but I would feel like he will definitely get a 10. That would play, so probably Dan Edwards, and then they'd probably call someone in, won't he? Yeah, you'd think.
Yeah, like
a bit more experience.
I think, like Dan Edwards,
a bit more enjoyable.
Coming off the bench against France, I think he looked very comfortable.
Yeah.
Speaking to Hookie as well, that he said that doing training, he's got that like calmness about him, and maybe you do put him in and give him a chance, because we've got 3 games to finish off: Ireland, Scotland, and England, and development-wise, until you get out there and see what you can do, I think it's giving him a chance to have a go. Have a go, and is a short time, like 12 days or 11 days now till Ireland. It's like how much can you do in that time? The boys have done the reps previous, like maybe moving Ben to 12, Jockey, he's going to put his own team that he likes.
His own stamp on it.
His own
stamp.
Try to. But it's just like what he said about the mindset going into it. Like Jockey's always been good about creating that buzz, that enjoyment around rugby, and he's always like, he's never been like a shouty coach. He's always been calm, collective, messing around and stuff. But when it's go time with him, it's go time. So I think he does bring that. Like, we've been in presentations with him, like reviews and stuff, and the slideshow he puts on, like boys engaging, and he has his key points, and boys do remember it. So I think you'll add that little bit. He's a fantastic coach, and I think he will just drive that. Like he's with Cardiff this week, going in. And then
he's only going to have probably Monday morning, Tuesday we'll have 2 sessions maybe, and then a Thursday. So he's only going to have 3, maybe 4 sessions with this team. But I do feel like there will be a change. Obviously, I'm not expecting them to go and beat Ireland, but I'm expecting them to put a performance that is maybe a little bit more Welsh, tougher to beat, bit more enjoyable. But I think, like Andrew said, about they will probably go and attack Ireland, and if they do come a cropper, but they've still given it a good go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just you want to see performance. That's what it is.
Exactly.
Like fun.
Andrew, what do you reckon? What's next? Director of rugby is what they're talking about for Wales. Obviously, loads of names have been flying around, haven't they? The likes of Checker. You got Smith, Franco Smith from Glasgow. Steve Tanley, obviously, with Scotland. And Simon Easterby, on Dragon Bet, I think Checker's 3-1, and the rest of the coaches are 5-1 to be the next, I guess, director of rugby or coach. I'm not sure how.
I think they how they're looking. And director above rugby above. I don't know.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on that, Andrew? In terms of director of rugby first before coach?
It seems the logical way to go, because the director of rugby's got to be able to work with the head coach to implement things and then get things to drip down. So it would be fairly logical to appoint the director of rugby first. But if the head coach falls into your lap, then you've got to be able to appoint them here and now. You can't be stuck by a rigid system that says, no, we must appoint our director of rugby first. It's going to be interesting to see, because it's a very specialised job. It needs to be someone who understands what is required from it, and there aren't many of those in the world. Now, in terms of the head coach, Franco's, I think, was always going to be linked, because he's the head coach of a team that are winning, and therefore that will always get you in. Now, it will cost money to buy him out of his contract, and there are lots of people I saw on social media last night going, hang on a minute, we all know the WRU doesn't have any money. How can they afford to buy someone out of the contract? Well, as we've already mentioned, it works from the top down. Wales need the first team winning. So if it means you've got to spend £500,000 or whatever it might be to buy someone out of a contract, you do it. So Franco will definitely be there. Michael Cheika's an interesting one. He apparently said to Leicester he didn't want to hang around because he wanted to go back to Australia for family reasons. Well, the last time I looked at a map, Cardiff and Wales is further away from Australia than Leicester.
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting.
But he's favourite, so bookies get it right most of the time.
Well, exactly. The thing is, he's available and he wouldn't cost you any money, because he's out of contract. So that's one of the reasons that he would be an attractive option. My question with Cheika is, this is a 3 or 4 year job. This isn't a 6 month, 18-month job. You need someone to buy him for the long term. Does he, at this stage of his life, want to do that? Also, he doesn't need to. I think most people are aware. His family are insanely rich, thanks to money that they made in the fashion industry. So Michael Cheika doesn't need the hassle. He works because he wants to do it and because it's a job that attracts him. So is Wales at the moment going to do that to him when he's spoken about going home? And just on Simon Easterby, I totally get why you'd want to approach him. I totally get the links. But in the statement released confirming that Warren had left, it said, we hope to have the new person in place before the summer to go to Japan. Well, Simon Easterby, because of its Lions year, has to be in charge of Wales in the summer, doesn't he? So when, even if you agree compensation with the IRU, I can't see them letting him go before the summer, because they've just had one upheaval having to cover for Andy Farrell. So are they going to, as I say, you might get him, but I don't think it would be before the summer, because that really doesn't help Ireland out. And do Ireland want to help Wales? I'm not sure they do.
I think, with how quickly Wales got an interim head coach, do you think they probably have a little bit in their mind about Matt Sherratt maybe taking over long term? Because
possibly, yeah. Like I
don't know. It's just a possibility. I
think it's stronger than a possibility, Alex, because in the press conference yesterday, Abby was asked, what about the backroom staff, the rest of the coaches? And she said, that's for Matt to decide. Well, that's a very, very unusual decision to let a man who's going to be in charge for 3 weeks decide what's happening with the rest of the staff. Because what if the new person coming in wants those people on board and you've just made them redundant? I find that very interesting. Although, to be fair, Cardiff did announce last night he has signed a new contract with them. Although, as we all know, when these things are announced, aren't necessarily relating to when the pen was actually put to the paper. It might be he signed it a few weeks ago and it's only just been announced, but it's a nice way of getting the compensation up if they are going to appoint him.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling. I think he could be there. I think he'll end up ringing Danny Wilson, his mate down at Quins. Gethin Jenkins will be coming back up. I think they get the gang together, and they obviously had some success
that's what's
together.
Going to happen. Whoever comes in as a head coach, you want your team around you. So
yeah,
that'll be an interesting one to see how it goes further on.
I think the other one as well is making sure that whoever comes in has got the relationships with the other regions, because I think that's probably been one of the problems, isn't it? With obviously Warren coming in, that they have butted heads a little bit. Certain regions, players playing in certain positions and having that control. And I think if someone like Matt, who would have that relationship with Mark Jones at Ospreys and Peely down at the Scarlets and obviously Tier at the Dragons, I think that will only reinforce everyone being on the same page. I don't know if you agree with that.
You go back, this is going way back now, and you could see that when Wales are playing, doing competing in everything and winning championships, it filtered down into like Cardiff and stuff. Like sometimes we were using Wales calls and all that, and the way we played and stuff had a little bit of effect, and like defensively, terminology and stuff. So it was like filtered down, but I think the game's changed so much. Every region's playing a different type of rugby. I think it's going to be hard to do that because every region's got different players and different styles that they want to play. So to actually filter down and say, right, this is what Wales wants to attack, defend like, to actually put that into 4 regions, I think in the way that the game's played now, it's going to be difficult to do that.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to put you in Matt Sherratt's head now in terms of his position. He's got 3 changes to make to that team, whether it's someone coming in, change of position, or whatnot going into the Ireland game. Andrew, we'll start with you. What would be your choice, obviously, if you were Matt Sherratt?
Okay, I'm assuming that everyone is fit, and do you know what? I'd make one change. I'd say that last week we thought you were the best kind of players. I'd stick with it, but I'd want a 10. For me, 10 is such a position, it's instinctive. You don't have time to think, you just do. And so therefore I'm moving Ben into the centres. Don't ask me which of the 2 centres is making way, because I haven't thought that one through fully yet.
Sorry, I put you on the spot a bit there.
I think it may well be Nick, and I am one of Nick Tompkins' biggest fans. I think he's a great player in the fact that I see him a lot with Saracens, and he is a player that glues things together. He holds it together. He makes things work at an elite level side. But for some reason, it's not really working. And let's be honest, Eddie barely saw the ball in 70 minutes or whatever it was against City. So I think it would be unfair to say, well, thanks very much for that. You basically watched a game, and now we're going to drop you. So I would want a 10, and let's go with Eddie and Ben in the centres. But then, and let Matt say, do you know what? You're all better than what we've seen for the last few weeks. I'm going to get a tune out of you. And that might be seen as him trying to big himself up, going, well, look, I can get a tune out of these players and Warren Gatland can't. So be it. But if last week you thought that those were the best 23 players who were available for Wales, then they probably still are this week because of the reasons that we've already spoken about. Let's see, with a bit of tinkering, if we can get more out of them.
Right, so you wouldn't call anyone up that's not in the squad? That would be your one change.
I'm getting a 10.
All right,
be it Jared, be it Gareth. I'm calling in that. But for the sake of continuity, because that's the other thing, you can't keep chopping and changing. You've got to give these lads at least a couple of games in a row to actually settle it in. And actually, that was if winding the clock back. If I'm Warren before France, I'm thinking to myself, we're probably not going to win this game. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the team for Italy out against France. And therefore, we're going to try things out so then we're ready for Italy. That's what made Italy, for me, even more disappointing in the fact that then went there and it was so limp.
Josh, I'll
go down that 10 channel. I was surprised that Gareth Anscombe didn't get called in the squad. Like as a player, as a leader, experience is a big thing. Like you could have bumped shoulders with Dan Edwards, and he could have learnt a lot from Gareth. So yeah, I like the pack. I look at the pack, and we got some great players, great back rowers. Evan Lloyd, like against France, carried really hard, and I wouldn't change anything too much. But I think 10's probably so the focal part in Wales. That red 10 jersey's always been doing that pinpoint, and he
weighs a ton, doesn't it?
Yeah, you look back at like Priest, Biggs, like back and forth, like back in the day, Hooky, but it is that focal point, and I think give Dan a chance because he's been amongst the squad, and maybe get the likes of Jared Evans in because he's got a lot of time on his side. Like Gareth's going to be, God, he could play another couple of years if his knees hold out. So just need to strap him up.
Chicken boy, yeah, I'd tell you, he'd be strapped up.
I wouldn't change too much because it's just getting the formula right now, and Jockey's going to have players in his head that he knows how he wants to go with, but he's spoken about that enjoyment and getting the mindset ready for Test rugby. So I think that's where you go down, and if he does make a load of changes, but I don't see too many changes.
No, be intriguing.
Can I ask a question? How do Wales get over the gain line? Because that stat that was floating around at the weekend about 13 first phase carries and only one
simple.
meter.
Someone just run hard.
it's just
run
as simple as that.
Like, I'm very old school, and doing the way I played. It does take that one person. Like Jack Morgan does it so well. He runs like on his own and hard, and he does get that nudge. But I think at times, like I'm so forward orientated here, but just to have right, your latch or your tip option outside, the player outside your lead runner, chatting to the guy who's going to have the ball, and just go, right, carry here, we're going to get over that gain line, and you do the same. I know you go back to Warren ball, it has changed, but like those 2 dents, really quick dents, frees up your backs.
I wouldn't say it's changed that much, mate. If you look at all the top teams, they've all got a 12 that's constantly over the gain line, and then you're able to play round the corner, beat them, or you fold, or you go back short side.
Yeah,
it gives you options straight away off first phase, doesn't it?
You just need that dent, and you get that big dent and another dent after. It's just someone carrying hard, like you said, like off 12. Like Jamie done it so well over the years for us.
But what helped Jamie it wasn't just Jamie running on his own flat out. He had Biggs at the back, he had Foxy as a tip option, he had George or myself or Lee or anyone was running. It was a bit of deception. So what it gave him was half a shoulder, a one-on-one. At the moment, that's not happening, is it? You're just seeing one man run into 3 blokes.
Yeah.
You're never going to make gain line.
It's like deception, innit? Like rugby league, you watch like the way they do it, and it has filtered into union, the way that everything's run with passes out the back. Ireland do it so well, just like the run around balls and stuff like that. It's just that deception to give weak shoulders. That's what you want, weak shoulders, or a 2-on-1 night. You're having 2 people run into one person, like with that extra weight behind you.
Just looks the lack of detail.
And also coming onto the ball. How many times do we see a carrier taking it stationary and then trying to get impetus? With the greatest respect, you're not going to get through an international quality defence like that, are you?
Yeah, it's speed of ball as well, breakdown. We can talk hours about this, like go into nitty gritty, like doing as a forward, doing breakdown specialist, whatever you want to call it. But like it comes down like every detail of the game, and I think just getting little things right can make it so much easier for ourselves and not put us under that much pressure. Yeah,
that's where Jockey will be. He's very, very good at, isn't he? His detail in terms of best people, best practice. I like is one of his sayings, isn't it? You know, in terms of getting your best carries on the ball in your first 3 phases, and then if you're not going forward off that, then you look for your kick option, whether it's off 10 or 9. It'd be pretty pragmatic in terms of that, and I think that will go a long way for Wales. Probably just staying in games a bit longer, isn't it? I think. Yeah. For me, I got one last question on Gats, because obviously he's had some careers in the Welsh career. What for you, Josh, would will he be known for? His obviously leaving Wales now, his legacy. Do you think this was harmed it or? Nah, not like doing. Obviously, this will like blow over, but like doing what's gone on in the past, what he's created for Wales. Like this is come from everything. Like the demand that we expect as a Welsh fan is come from what has Gats done over his first trimester in Wales, and like you go up the barn in down the Vale and Centre of Excellence, and you can just see the banner of championships who won, and like that was a reminder to me, like when I was playing, like I'd love to have an effect on that and add another one. I think that's the mindset like has changed, and I think that's what he's brought, and he'd be remembered for that. Like he's got gates named after him. Yeah, and it's victory for the Lions. Victory for the Lions. Didn't pick me for a long time for Wales. Like I had a 4-year. I used to joke about this. Every time there was a Lions tour, I'd be called into the Welsh squad. So the summer tour, and then I used to joke with the boys that, this is my Lions tour, boys, and I'd play like 1 or 2 games this summer, and then 4 years on after, I get called up to the the Lions squad. So it's mad how it goes, but. Like Gats had always his players I used to look to and stuff, and there was some great back rowers when I was coming through. Like you had Warby, Tips, Lids, Toby. It's a great back row, and to like not be picked in the squads and stuff, and then Warby retired and I started playing more. So you played your better rugby in those 4 years you didn't get picked. Yeah, I know. Andrew, what would be your obviously first instinct of Gatland, obviously from across the border sort of thing? Do you think this would have tarnished him, or do you think Warren will always be classed as a legend? I really hope it doesn't. I genuinely hope it doesn't. You've just said Grand Slams, titles, and built-up expectations. That's why the lows feel so low, because the highs were so high. He basically put it all together. He masterminded. Yes, we've heard that phrase over the last couple of days, a golden generation of players.
but you still got to put them in the right places, as we said, round pegs in round holes, and get the best out of them. He was absolutely of his time at that moment. It was perfect for him. I genuinely hope that people don't think negatively of Warren. It hasn't worked this time for whatever reason, but this time should be separated from the first time, because those are totally different ends of spectrums in terms of where Welsh rugby and world rugby are at those particular points. So, no, for me, Warren will always be one of the top-end legendary coaches.
Yeah, well said, well said. Right, just jumping on ahead, we'll go over a little bit. The Six Nations just gone. Obviously, England getting a pretty lucky win against France. That'll go down
I know
well,
you're looking
won't
at me when you say that, but I'd agree with you. I totally agree with you. The English media seem to have completely airbrushed out of history the fact that they could have been 30 points down by half-time if France had actually remembered to pack their hands in their hand luggage. I mean, that was the worst first 40 from France I've seen in years. And they could have had the bonus point in their back pocket and been back on the Channel Tunnel, but shortly after the break. So, yes, I'm going to give them credit for actually seeing that one through, because that's been the issue in recent times. But actually, if France had played anything like and finished those chances, there wouldn't have been a chance for England to finish that game off and see them through. So it's like the old good news, bad news joke. Good news, England managed to see a game out. Bad news, they shouldn't have been in a position to do so.
Yeah, I think the press just wanted something nice to say about England rugby. They've always been losing last minute, and finally they've got the win. What do you think, Josh?
Like international rugby, it doesn't matter if you win by a point or 100 points. Like, winning's winning, so it leads into the next game now. And watching it, yeah, it's got a great game of rugby, but like you said, with France first half, just they could have seeded it off. But coming out and winning, and just winning by a point, you'll take that all day long, wouldn't you? Against like the French side.
Well, the stupid thing is that some of them are now saying, well, hang on a minute, Scotland weren't very good last weekend, and they're actually now starting to plot it out. Could England actually go on and win this thing? I'm thinking, lads, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here.
Do you know, I actually think they have got a chance. Like, they've got their run now. They've got Scotland, obviously at home. I know it's going to be tough, but Scotland, I thought they were pretty bad last week against Ireland, but it was a pretty quality outfit in Ireland.
Ireland are good,
and then they've got Italy, and then they've got Wales. Sorry, last game. Like, imagine them. They're going to win
Wales, England.
There's a chance.
There's a chance. Wales, England, home. That'll be a good one though, wouldn't it? Imagine on for the champ. And then
I think they're obviously praying for France to beat Ireland, which I can see happen. That's the thing. Which then
I'm not so sure.
No,
not in Dublin.
Matt back. Do you not think that would have been a big difference?
Could have been, yeah, because the way they played against England wasn't the best. They did change the style somewhat, but I just think Ireland have now. Prendergast was the big one for me this Six Nations. There hadn't been someone who really definitively grabbed the 10 shirt for Ireland by the scruff of the neck since Sexton. It appears, and we're doing this off a very limited sample size, but it appears that Prendergast might be the man to do that. So another couple of games in, I just think that they might have a little bit too much in the Aviva. He's
like Sexton's son. He looks just like Sexton running around, doesn't he? Winging these passes out, assists galore, he's kicking.
That little pass.
That pass, and then he does that little tip and then run around. But it's just like watching Sexton back in the day, isn't it?
And then that seed he threw out to the right wing for the try. I mean, that was about a 20-metre pass. That was absolutely inch perfect.
Yeah, on the money. He does look... It does help when you're on the front foot as much as they are.
It's massive as a 10, doesn't it? Your forwards going forward. So.
Well, England-wise, do you think they looked a little bit better with Finn Smith or Marcus Smith? The two Marcuses. That's the two. That seems to be the Smiths.
It'll be interesting. Again, I thought France made a mistake because the idea of putting Marcus back at 15 was that France kick long and therefore he can run it back. They didn't, till about 65, 70 minutes, put a high ball up on him. So for me, if you're seeing Marcus Smith back there, surely you go high. You don't hit it long and let him run it back at you. So the interesting thing will be how opposition react to that. I quite like the idea. Marcus always seems to want to join in and getting in on that almost like that second or third touch of a move, which obviously works for him at if he's joining the line from 15. I like Finn Smith as a player. I think he's a really good player. He's got that calm all-round kind of game, which for someone so young is quite ridiculous. But he's also got that club partnership with Mitchell at 9. And that, for me, again, was quite telling. For the first time in I don't know how long, England didn't completely empty the bench. Chandler Cunningham South and Harry Randall didn't get on, which was quite interesting. The fact that they said,
match for you, isn't it?
So that they basically said, Alex Mitchell, you're going well. We need you to see this game out. We can't necessarily risk getting Harry Randall up to speed. So I thought that was interesting, and maybe Finn Smith is also helped by having that club partnership as well. But I'm guessing they'll stay with it for a while, because just purely they're chopping and changing so much. In the last year or so, there's been Freddie Stewart, George Furbank, now Marcus Smith, all starting at 15. In the same respect, actually, in the last year at Blindside, they started the Six Nations last year with Ethan Roots. Then they've had Chandler Cunningham South. Now we've got one of the Currys, and there's options. There's talk about potentially either George Martin or Ollie Chesham going there. I'm not sure I see a synergy in that. That sometimes you make changes, horses for courses and all of that. But Ethan Roots to Chandler Cunningham South to Tom Curry, that looks a massive change to me. That kind of doesn't appear that they've got a formula nailed down. So
yeah, I don't feel sorry for you, because the naming these names, that's a lot of good players.
Yeah, spoke for choice, really, aren't you?
That's the thing.
Do you want to do a swapsies?
Well, we'll see.
I'd rather a back row.
Obviously, go over to the Wales Island game next week. Wales, 16-1 on Dragon Bet for the win. And they're actually not taking any more bets for Ireland winning. So,
flipping out.
Yeah, so it shows obviously that the favouritism that Ireland are having. What do you think? What do you think's going to happen?
I got Ireland are too good, and they like the way they're playing. They've been in form for a few years now. Didn't go too well at the World Cup, but like every Six Nations that came up, they're always favourites or joint with France. So like the back we've come off 14 games leading into Ireland is a massive game for Wales, but with Ireland, they're very strong. The way they move the ball, like everything is on the money with their passing. It's like next level, I see, and they're just too sharp, like very sharp.
What do you think, Andrew? Grand Slam for Ireland? Theirs to lose?
I would think so. For me, for Wales, for that game, if you can come home with a bonus point of one description or another, that's akin to winning the game for me. From where Wales are, if you to get either 4 tries or lose by 7 or fewer, that's massive. That's tuck it in your pocket and be very, very happy. Ireland are that good at the moment, so for me, it is theirs to lose. So the points margin might be interesting with Dragon Bet there. They might take some money on that one if Wales can get
plus 26,
10 or fewer. Yeah. If Wales can get within 10-15 from where they were 1 week to the next, that's a good result.
Yeah. Well, let's hope. I think Matt Sherratt has a couple of good sessions with the boys, and I'm sure there'll be a few changes, but hopefully he goes well. But thanks for joining us, Andrew, on that. I appreciate the bit of a mad day yesterday, and obviously big news, isn't it? With probably Wales' best ever coach leaving. So, glad you could jump on and join. And Josh, thanks for coming first time on.
Cheers,
mate. Did well, mate. You have to come back again.
Yeah, I'll be back, won't I?
Yeah, right. Right, cheers guys. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in to Sportin Wales podcast. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on all socials for all things Sportin Wales.
Sportin Wales podcast.
Supported by Dragon Bet.
Your go-to for Welsh sports news and views.